you might think you have an ads problem, but really you have like a whole unit economics problem, or you're deploying ads right now, but 50% of your budget is going towards your existing customer base. That's why you're not growing.
If the people on your marketing team aren't talking about that, or they don't have access to your financials, or they don't understand your runway, I'd be heavily cautious that you have the right people in the right seats. Like, revenue is very deceiving. You need to break up revenue into new customer cohorts and to returning customer cohorts, especially when you're dealing with growth. Contribution margin, but more specifically new customer contribution margin, so you can see if you're actually growing or if your contribution margin is just a band-aid for your returning customer profit leaving out the door.
No one that we talk to that even has Q4 in their mind. Summer is when the work for Q4 happens. So
what's up, guys? New podcast
Yo.
episode with my partners, Zach and Pat here. Let's get into it. Zach, do you want to kick it off of kind of like what you've been seeing and what we've been building from Mav to the P&Ls to forecasting, the type of language that we're talking about?
Yeah. Really, it just transitioned from us jumping into a client relationship and first like going and looking into ad account and seeing how we can focus on acquisition, to now we like jump in their P&L and really like understand their financials. I think we're getting into a world where like financials and marketing, I was like growth marketing, performance marketing, whatever you want to call it, are very closely related and should go hand in hand. And if the people on your marketing team aren't talking about that, or they don't have access to your financials, or they don't understand your runway, I'd be heavily cautious that you have the right people in the right seats. What we've been doing is really what we want to do is like make this speed to clarity of decision making as fast as possible. So what we've been working on for the entirety of 2026 thus far is our proprietary data platform called Maverick that ingests P&L and is able to forecast and more importantly, make a demand plan off that forecast. So it's not just a bunch of hoopla and like random numbers. We can actually understand the inputs to get the outputs of that forecast. So really it's one place that a strategist, like one singular person, can make decisions and go tackle, whatever that problem is in, mostly the acquisition and the growth funnel. And we'll get into like more of what Maverick is. But like just one thing that I'm seeing that we are consistently talking about and where we're going is more of the financial model of growth and less about like just running ads. I do want to talk about some things that we are seeing on Meta specifically and in like media buying. One, to kind of just start the conversation, is Meta just opened up their purchase lookback window to now 2 years, because we were seeing how Meta was actually underreporting purchase events and post-purchase events. So like blended NCAC was actually looking worse than it was. We know never to optimize just for in-platform ROAS and all those things anymore. It's very, very outdated. And again, this is why looking at financials is so good. But one of the minor things that we've been doing is scrubbing through our accounts to extend the purchase lookbacks, like I said, to 2 years, cleaning audience exclusions, really making sure that we're not being inefficient with our spend and putting our dollars in the right spot. Judging accounts holistically across Meta, Google, and email rather than trusting one platform. I think that's kind of going to be like a theme of this entire conversation. And I'll kind of just stop there. I'm curious to see if, with these new updates on Meta, like what you have seen too on your side of running ads, Pat, too, as well. But that's kind of just what we're seeing on the DTC side.
Yeah, I'm curious. Also, too, there was a lot to unpack from there. As you can tell, Zach has been crushing it. But what I'm curious too is from what you've been seeing with our partners in Ecom in general, what action steps are they taking from? I know you were throwing a lot of metrics out there, like in CAC, we're focusing on new customers and we're focusing on all this stuff. What is that actually like when you read a P&L? First, like what are you looking at? What are like the top 4 metrics that you're looking at? And what is that actually telling you to do? Especially with like, we're talking meta ads, obviously. Andromeda creative's huge. What are the metrics telling you to do? What are the most common things? Give us an example. And what are we actually doing because of the data that's telling us? Like what's a good pattern you're seeing now? And then what is the team doing to, see success?
Yeah, good question. And I think a lot of people can find value from this. First is make sure your P&Ls are are set up for success. And if you're listening to this and your P&Ls are on the back burner and you're not thinking about it, and there's numbers everywhere and they're not in the right categories, I'd highly encourage you to take an hour to go fix that. Because when us or another growth partner is going to look at it, that's going to be extremely important. First, we need to make sure that everything's in the correct bucket so we can analyze. But an important thing is taking in a P&L, and then we also look at all of the previous Shopify customer side data and overlap that over the P&L so we can break up revenue. Like, revenue is very deceiving. You need to break up revenue into new customer cohorts and to returning customer cohorts, especially when you're dealing with growth. Like, if someone just talks about, hey, I want to run some ads and I want to scale my company, we first need to assess the health of what scaling means for you. Because what we've seen, and this is something that I would look at a P&L first, is contribution margin, but more specifically new customer contribution margin. So you can see if you're actually growing or if your contribution margin is just a Band-Aid for your returning customer profit leaving out the door. So I'm going to look at what your new customer contribution margin dollar is versus your OpEx and see if that's bigger, then okay, we can maybe growing. If it's lower, you're just you are compensating for the profit that you're losing from people not staying with the new customers coming in, and you're just going to be in this repeating cycle. Does that make sense? Any questions or comments there?
Yeah. That's
the first thing, because then we can actually establish here's kind of where you're at, and then from there it's a level of health. How can we get out of a hole if you're in a hole? And if it's on the acquisition side, it's offer. Let's talk about the entire acquisition unit economics now and see what makes sense. And with the unit economics for an offer, it's not necessarily okay, here's my product, this is our break-even CAC, or what is the lowest amount of CAC that we can have. It's what is the highest CAC that I could afford to make profit off of this customer over different cohorts, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So that's why you look at customer payback periods too as well. Again, ingesting all of their retention data, seeing their churn if they have subscription, and turning it into a science. I might be getting into the weeds here, but really P&L, you should be looking at contribution margin first, understanding the flow of new customers versus people going out the door, and then that's how you can really build a marketing plan, which should start with how are you going to acquire new customers, likely going to be the offer and what you're putting in front of people's faces.
Yeah, and then I know Xavier was talking, I think it was last week, he brought up something pretty solid when he was for one of our client accounts, he's a growth partner for some of our clients, and he was we were doing all this stuff, we were trying all these different creatives, testing, throwing the whole kitchen sink basically at this account, but then all I did was shift the landing page, the messaging, and bundle.
Right.
The AOV increased X%, and then now they have all this margin, and now they're able to put more into advertising, and that one little fix changed all of the problems that we were facing the past couple months, and it was just that one little thing. So
right,
maybe even y'all can talk about that, the misconception that we got to throw the kitchen sink at this, we got to test all these creatives, we got to overcomplicate all this shit.
Right.
These two things.
People, and rightfully so, people either sign up with an agency or they get started in marketing on ads, and they just want to get ads going, and they're where are my ads? Let's get more ads. When we don't even talk about ads until we understand the numbers. And to your point, I approach this as my background in engineering, it's just problem solving. And if you're working on the wrong things, you're going to stay stagnant, or you're going to go back because you're going to be spending resources on things that don't actually matter. Why we built Maverick is I really want to be able to see, okay, our new customer acquisition costs went down. Why? Okay, we should be able to look at every single part of the funnel, CPOC for ads, bounce rate for PSO landing page, add to cart rate, checkout rate, and we should see what went down to contribute to our NCAC going up. That's what I want the smartest person in the room focusing on. So to your point, I know exactly what client you're talking about, what funnel we just fixed. Is we should be able to see that on a daily basis, and that's what we're attacking right there, not worrying about the headline of an ad or a background, a color of an ad. This is what's going to contribute to dollars in people's pockets, and not feelings or NCAC went down because I feel we didn't make enough ads. It's it's a metric that went backwards, and you just fix that thing first. It's funny, like we were talking internally a couple of days ago of how like ecom's super complex, but it's actually much simpler than we think if the numbers are in front of us. Reporting, dashboards, Shopify apps, all of these things are great and they're sexy and they're useful. But if you can't make an educated decision fast off of it, it's kind of just noise. So that's like really what we're trying to build within TBG, so we can help put us closer to the data to make effective decisions for our clients as fast as possible.
Yeah. Pat, to loop you in here too. I want to see, obviously you're talking to hundreds of brands every single quarter, and you kind of have more of a pulse on the problems that a lot of these other brands are facing, all these conversations. What do you tell them, obviously, our product offering is, and why we're making all this stuff Zach is talking about right now to serve to them? And why is Zach developing this product based off of the conversations that you're having with all these e-commerce brands?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is a lot of brands don't have the right problem identified. So they'll schedule a call with us, and they'll think, oh, our Meta ads aren't working, or our Google ads aren't working, or Klaviyo is not working, whatever problem. We need more creative. And it goes back to what Zach's talking about, is they're kind of living in like tactics and deliverables land of thinking that it's something, it's like a little quick fix or a little Band-Aid that needs to be, put on to improve everything. But most e-commerce founders that I work with, usually it's like the founder, the CMO, they're up at the top. They're obviously looking at their Shopify on day to day, and then they have like all these different agencies. And so each agency is reporting on different things. So the typical thing is a Meta ads agency is reporting on, usually still to this day, people are just talking about ROAS in general, not even a breakdown of, is that actually new customers or returning customers? Like when we do an audit, that's the most common thing that we find, is that whoever the media buyer or ad agency they're working with, they're just optimizing for ROAS so that they can say, hey, our ROAS is X, Y, and Z. We'll talk about that here in a second. Then they have the Google agency, that's ROAS as well, not breaking down between branded search or different campaigns, PMAX, et cetera. And then Klaviyo, that's talking about just percentage of Klaviyo revenue. And then the issue is that the gap is in that messy middle, where the founder, the CEO, they're usually too busy. They're thinking about products that have to be launched and all the other moving parts of the company, that they're not looking at the true growth metrics and the financials that we're talking about. Or CMO as well might not have that knowledge. They might be a great marketer, but doesn't know how to translate that into the financial side. And these bigger brands have a CFO that is just kind of like, hey, we need to cut costs, or like, hey, we're spending too much here, but there's no like reason why. So that's that messy middle that we solve. And what I have to kind of communicate to brands that want to work with us is, yeah, you might think you have an ads problem, but really you have like a whole unit economics problem, or you're deploying ads right now, but 50% of your budget is going towards your existing customer base. That's why you're not growing, and you're just spending it on, people that would have bought anyway. And so that's really the thing that brands struggle with. And that's kind of what's been hard for us, is like, it's not as sexy to say, hey, we'll help you create a financial based marketing plan. So, a lot of things that sometimes we talk about is like improving your ROAS or email, because it's kind of like, this is what you think that you need. And then when you talk to us and we run the audit, then usually it's a totally different prescription than what they went into that call thinking that they needed, because there's all these other gaps and holes in their strategy.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I also think too, and Zach, when you're talking about like OpEx, the bigger the company too, when they have a higher revenue number, what I've kind of noticed is a lot of these founders or these teams feel like they need to have an inflated team. They need to have someone for this, that they really don't even need, that aren't tied to any performance incentive to driving profitable revenue or actually following their North Star. I don't think they identify the North Star of where they want this company to be in the next 5 years, 10 years, and solely focusing on that, because there's so many D2C brands out there. Some of the best performing partners that we have from the outside may not look like have a lot of attention or generating a lot of revenue, but they're just focusing on Meta ads being as profitable as possible, being able to spend as much as they possibly can, looking at their lifetime value, and just going based off of those few metrics. And they're one of the most successful partners that we work with.
Yeah.
Zach, do you have any more?
Yeah. No, like I think just treating it as equations and not as feelings 100%. Like I've probably looked at 100 P&Ls this year. And to your point about OpEx is like OpEx bloat is like what we try to do is like, you know, we're not a CPA for any of these guys and any of these things, but we have seen the vast difference of what like unprofitable and profitable P&Ls look like at various stages of like 7 to 9 figure brands. And I think we're able to just give perspective of like, okay, we were just working with a pet brand that was like 10% bigger than you and they have a lower OpEx by 20%. Like what, like who are you hiring? Like what are they actually doing? And to your point, I think people just have people in butts and seats because that's like how it was in the past. Obviously, we don't have to get down this rabbit hole of like AI and all these things, but there's a lot leaner and more efficient ways to have either less people or have people tied towards incentive that I think we've opened up a lot of eyes. And what that does, it opens up your marketing for growth and you're able to acquire more customers, you're able to grow your database, you focus on retention, the wheels start turning and things keep clicking. Things start to click. People just get lost in like, this is how much I have to spend every single month. And my marketing expense is the last thing that I think about. And I just need to make it work. And then it's like, you guys are my ad agency, make it work, make magic. And it's just like, it's kind of not how it works. So I think it's actually gave us like super big advantage to where we would start with a brand and say they have $50,000 a month of ad spend. You know, if we can clean out $25,000 of OpEx like that, that just opens up our window to acquire more customers. Balls rolling. Yep. And I think they themselves can just get another perspective on it.
Yeah, exactly. I think I want to shift this conversation to kind of looking ahead now. I think obviously we're talking about kind of what we've been seeing rolling into 2026 up until now, what we're building because of what we're getting thrown at us and what we're seeing in the market. Now I want to kind of look ahead. I want to get a sort of a sneak preview of and look a little under the hood of what we're planning ahead for the rest of 2026 headed into 2027. Obviously, it's the end of June now. Y'all may be watching this in July. What conversations are being had with our partners of, you know, Black Friday coming around, Q4 coming around? Obviously, it's behind, but I know these conversations are being had. What are we doing? And what do we see? What predictions do we have in the market? And what are we going to see in e-commerce and, you know, that type of stuff? Like what are we going to see come Q4 from a lot of these brands? And what, you know, tips would we give to other founders for going into Q4?
Conversation that we're already having with a lot of our founders is around creative, like the nonstop creative flow. For all of our brands. I think we've transitioned out of AI slop and AI volume on Meta, and now what works, honestly, what we're seeing is more on the authentic video side, and we're testing video to then test hooks and concept to then bring onto static that may or may not be AI generated. But we're out of the AI volume game, and we're now into content and create and true creativity. And the conversations that we've been having with our brands that I think will translate heavily into Black Friday just to own market share will be like, how can you guys, meaning like founder and team and brand and internal marketing team, give us volume to run on ads, like good, authentic content. I think people are seeing right now that like, you know, AI UGC not working, just like non-authentic stuff perform bad. And this is why like paid partnerships on ads is doing really well, because that validity of having a real person is now popping off on advertising. So I'd say like the creative orchestration to have different pockets of creative and different buckets of creative nonstop flowing, so you can produce 50 to whatever 150 ads per month, depending on scale. And then brand partnerships, huge. Like that validity and instant trust. It's funny because I feel like that was a thing maybe 6 months ago to a year, and now it's really re-picking back up. And Meta is rewarding people for using brand partnerships. Sorry,
yeah,
not brand partnerships.
Explain the difference from that and whitelisting, because that's something that I think I got a couple weeks ago. It was like I asked you, what's that versus whitelisting? Like, what's the difference?
And they could both work, but one is through brands handle, and then one is through creators brandle, and then you could do the partnership, so it's on both.
So it looks like a
Advantageous,
collab,
yeah, it
basically.
looks like a collab, and advantageous too if you do the collab is because you can own like the comment section. You don't have to rely on like the creator to like monitor comments and respond and like kind of like engagement farm too as well. But like having a variety of all of that really really good, and Meta is rewarding accounts that are spending on that.
Yeah. Pat, what conversations are you hearing around Q4 and stuff?
I think no one talks about Q4. No one that we talk to that like wants to work with us even has Q4 in their mind. So that's something over the last 4 years of running this company is like the work. Summer is when the work for Q4 happens. So yeah, a lot of them are not even thinking about Q4. They're trying to figure out the next week, next month, and that's the other problem too
Yes.
that we have to solve with our brands is to think more long term. Naturally, we always talk about scaling our brands month over month, but the reality is that most large e-commerce brands, it's kind of you have consistent growth maybe throughout the year. It depends on the brand. And then Q4 is just like might make up 30, 40, 50% of your total revenue. Like it depends on the brand, of course. But so some brands come in like, hey, like we need to, maybe we're a little bit more conservative. We're not pushing as much as possible. Like it depends on the brand's financial situation because there's one argument, which is like you need to be going guns blazing, going hard, acquiring new customers so that you can just absolutely smash Q4. And there's other brands where maybe the summer is a slower time where you can't be as aggressive and you kind of have to prepare for like a big financial outcome in Q4. So yeah, most brands don't have Q4 on their radar, and usually it's those conversations start in October, and that's kind of a new process. I mean, we started this last year where Q4 has to start getting in motion now. You have to start getting those wheels turning and figure out how we're going to hit those Q4 goals. Because like what Zach's talking about with forecasting is you can forecast out like a month from now, like you can look at it, but if you look at 6 to 12 months down the line, you can backwards engineer everything from like, okay, if we're trying to hit this by the end of the year, if we're trying to hit $5 million in annual revenue, what does that actually look like? Let's look at your previous years. Okay, it might be a ramp up where, the goal is to get to, $300,000 a month during the summer. And then, all of a sudden we're doing 700, 800 in the Q4 period. So that's just something that we have to tackle with new brands that want to work with us and obviously existing clients as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I want to add on that. Like the ability to manufacture higher months, I think is a conversation that needs to be had at the start of a relationship, at least with us and our brands, or if you are a brand, like again, 12 months out. In between those peaks, that doesn't mean you like turn off marketing. It just means the intentionality of like the outcome for the specific months is highly planned, and it's backwards engineered with like a demand plan, with ads, with email, with daily events that should have a target revenue goal that add up to what that monthly goal is, quarterly goal, whatever it is. And it needs to be real things. This could be like a fake holiday. It could be whatever it may be. It doesn't even have to be I was listening to another podcast. It doesn't even have to be like something around sales. It could be around like email acquisition. So you could run like a fundraiser or partner with another brand that doesn't necessarily make you money, but you can absorb 100,000 emails in your email list, and then you have new people that you can sell to. So like it's a specific marketing event that maybe happens quarterly, obviously not every month, that is extremely intentional to then drive revenue in that month or in the future months.
Well, I also even think just on the brand side too, if you're always just trying to sell, I think the same conversation that you had with AI and authenticity sells, and because me as a consumer, if I'm on Instagram, I can clearly tell, especially if you're trying to sell to people 20s, 30s, they can easily identify like AI and just not real content. And if you're trying to be sold to all the time, or you're trying to sell to your customers all the time, I don't think that builds a real brand, especially they're not going to show up when you need them most on like Black Friday or a huge, Prime Day or whatever it is, because they're just price shopping. If you're trying to build a real brand, you should be expected to put out brand content, put out true messaging and not always just try to sell your customers. So you're going to expect those lower months sometimes when the market's obviously volatile in these like slow summer months where people are, saving up all their money to spend come Q4 or the holiday season. So I think that has like a whole branding play too, because if your thought process is, hey, I'm going to scale month over month and it's all just about the number, I think long term you're going to be cooked because you're not building true brand equity.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's another thing.
It is fun to scale month over month with clients. Best. It is the best thing ever.
Yeah, it is fun. But I mean, it's just you have to understand, where that's going to come. And I also think that has to like, I think what's going to be huge come. It already is huge now, but what people need to focus on, and that's what we're doing ourselves too, is just like that founder-led content of not really focusing on the views, the impressions, wherever it may be, having a true authentic story that you can tell. I think Pat and I did our podcast last week, and we talked a lot about the big brands that we're looking at, and they have true meaning behind the brand, and they're giving them the solution that these people don't understand, to a problem that these people don't understand that they have, and through a founder story. And that's some of the best winning ads and the best about us pages or flagship landers that these people are running is these like founder stories, even from people that aren't the best at talking to the camera or whatever. It's a true authentic story on why they built this product, why they're serving it to you, the problem that it's solving, and it has a whole story tied to it,
Relatability sells.
Yep.
Can't relate to an AI person. And that's not to say like AI, you just see like that stuff works for sales. I think if you want to build like a 9-figure brand and sell it at the end of the day, that's not going to translate into real branding. So that's not to say someone's going to clip this and say, we're wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you guys enjoyed this podcast, and if you really want to get a lens onto your brand that's actually focused on the financial health and how do we craft a marketing plan on that, we have two ways of working with us. If you're over $100,000 a month and looking to reach that $1 million a month milestone, we have our core offering, which is what we do a lot of our work on. Most of our clients are on that, and that's where we build out the P&L, and we execute the marketing channels and really operate as that fractional growth marketing team. So you'll see that link below. If you're under $100,000 a month, we do have Forge, which is our consulting arm, which helps brands get to that 100,000 plus a month mark. So we'll also have a link down below. Schedule that in. You'll talk to myself, and hopefully we can figure out how we can help you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Peace out.
See y'all. Have a good day.